Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. Today I want to talk a little bit about TSM, which is obviously nothing new here on this channel. I am the resident TSM hater of YouTube, of Twitter, of Discord, of whatever. But today I wanted to talk about why I am a little bit concerned for them. Obviously, TSM is a very volatile team, a very polarizing team. People really either love them or hate them. And I know a lot of people say I hate them or whatever, but I think esports and League of Legends is better when TSM is good and when they're relevant. You know, this past spring split just wasn't as fun. Viewership's not the same. It's not as exciting. Even if you hate TSM, you hate to see them or you love to see them lose in like meaningful games, not in like a last place match or anything like that. So I don't hate TSM, but I do want them to be competitive. I want them to be good. I don't want them to be an absolute joke. I don't want them to keep going down the path they have been going, but I really do question what the future looks like for this team. And I was tweeting about this the other day, and this is something that I really am going to be thinking about a lot over the next couple of months, because this is going to be a huge ongoing question, a huge ongoing topic, and a huge ongoing story. And that is this. I tweeted out, I wish I had any clue what TSM was going to do in the jungle next year. Now, I have a lot of questions just in general about what TSM is going to do next year. I really think after last split, them finishing 9th place, last place, tied for 9th, whatever you want to call it, a tiebreaker to not be last. I don't consider those an actual thing, but obviously some people do and will say that TSM finished 9th and not last, whatever. I think that the moves that they have made headed into the summer split are not moves to, I don't know if these moves are super long term. I don't know if they're to be super competitive, or I don't know if they're just to maybe bridge the gap into next offseason. Again, I think Maple is an interesting signing, but do I expect him to come in and be a huge difference maker? No, I think he is one of these imports that's maybe being signed on the downside of his career for a little bit of cheap to maybe make a big splash, maybe bet on his resurgence, maybe bet on him revitalizing his career. But either way, he's probably just going to come and be hopefully solid, but I don't really expect him to be that insane of a standout. And then bringing in Mia, who some people say is pretty good, and some people say is pretty cracked from like Champions Crew or whatever. I also don't know how good he's going to be. And Shenny, while I do think Shenny is very, very talented, and he's an exciting young prospect, he's shown maybe some maturity issues, maybe some attitude issues, and for sure, at the very least, some synergistic issues with Tactical and with the rest of this TSM team. So I don't really expect them to be like world's contenders in the summer split. Now, maybe that's best case scenario. Maybe best case scenario, they can compete for like second or third or something like that. I think that's somewhat unlikely. So I think for the most part, TSM is just trying to get 2022 over with as fast as they can. I'm sure there's a lot of things about 2022 that they would love to put behind them. The Reggie investigation, the Peter Zhang investigation, the Shenny drama, the Spica getting caught up in some of this drama, the team doing really bad in spring, all this stuff. And now, there's talk of like TSM going cheap, and obviously what I'm talking about here is what TSM is going to be doing in the jungle next year. Spica likely to leave. I think it is possible that he stays, but at the very least, he's going to be testing free agency. And in the direction that TSM is trending in looking to go cheaper and looking to save more money from this offseason, they didn't make any crazy splashy moves. They didn't drop a ton of money on Maple. They didn't drop a ton of money on Mia. They passed up on some other players that they maybe could have spent a little bit more money on. They even passed up on some younger resident kind of prospects and stuff that would have been expensive. Guys like Tenacity, guys like the support from Team Liquid. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. Ayla. They could have brought in some of those guys to potentially start building for the future if they really do want to do a rebuild, if they really do care about 2 or 3 years from now. But instead, they're talking about 3 years from now, and they bring in Maple and they bring in Mia. Doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But anyway, Spica, maybe he's going to leave, maybe he's going to stay. And Spica has been a really, really awesome thing overall for TSM. One, he's been an amazing player. MVP. That's great. He's won a title for TSM. He's taken them to Worlds. Obviously, all those things didn't go well, but he was also like a homegrown talent. This is a guy that I actually think TSM did an amazing job with. They spotted a really, really talented player while he was young, brought him up. Again, coached him up to MVP level, won a title with him. They did everything perfect, and he's good on content. He's good on social media. He's good with all these things. And then the last step of that whole process is hanging on to him and building around him as your franchise player, which is where they're starting to fumble the bag a little bit. But say Spica's going to leave, then you need to figure out what you're going to do next in the jungle. Bo seemed like the home run slam dunk option to me. Bo potentially won't be ready to go until next year. We've heard that because of COVID issues and visa issues and all this stuff. So it seemed like it was going to work out perfect. Spica's going to play with them this year, then he's going to leave, and then Bo could come in next year. And TSM passed on him. TSM lets Bo go to Vitality instead, even though it seemed like TSM and Bo were very, very close to getting something done. Okay, whatever. Then you have Kenvi, this guy who's been on 100 Thieves Academy for a while now, and he's been talking about, and 100 Thieves has talked about how he wants to go to a top 5 team in the LCS, how he'd rather stay with the 100 Thieves Academy than sign for one of these bottom 5 teams, but he'll go to a top 5 team, and he'd love to play in the LCS. He'd love to, stop being an academy. So TSM, again, a team who's talking about building for the future, and looking for pieces that they don't just want to buy out the biggest and best players every single split and have it not work out. They want to build for the future. They have Kenvi here, who's looking for a spot, looking for a team to go to, and obviously he starts settling a little bit. He starts lowering his ask because he ends up on Immortals, a team that's not very good, doesn't have a good brand, doesn't have good coaching staff, and doesn't typically offer a ton of money either. So we know he likely wasn't that expensive. Maybe Immortals just splashed an absolute bag on him, like all the money they had. I don't know for sure. And obviously Immortals has some money, bringing in guys like Ignar and Power of Evil and all this stuff. But they don't have TSM money. They don't got the FTX contract or whatever. So the fact that TSM has not really done a whole lot to potentially lock up Spica for the future, and they haven't re-signed him. They pass on Bo. They pass on Kenvi. Who else is out there? What are the other jungle options that they're going to do for the future? I mean, there is a couple potential options. There is a guy like Sven Skaren, who maybe they could bring back to TSM. Obviously, he still doesn't have a team. He's going to be a free agent next offseason. That's going to be available likely as well. Maybe they could bring him in to come back, but who knows if he would even want to come back, or if they would even want him, because again, he doesn't really fit in with being a long-term option or a long-term play. Wherever Spica goes, if Spica does end up going to a top 5 team, like there's a lot of speculation of him going to like Team Liquid or something like that, that would obviously then make Santorin available. Maybe TSM looks at bringing Santorin back, but again, that's Santorin and Sven Skaren, 2 guys that they've already had before, and I don't know if they exactly have the best relationship with TSM at this point. And outside of that, who is a good jungler? Who is a good option? And especially when you start looking at it, probably needs to be a resident as well. Obviously, if you bring imports into the mix, there's always going to be a ton of Chinese, Korean, ERL, LEC, apparently LDL options. You're always going to have a multitude of those, but you can only import so many positions. And if they have Maple and they have Shani, even if they, maybe decide to move on from Maple or Shani or whatever next year, they're going to need a top laner. They're going to need a jungler. They're still going to need a mid laner. Like, TSM is going to have so many holes, and only 2 of these holes are going to be able to be filled by imports, and in the rest of the positions, they're going to have to look at, resident players. And TSM Academy is not that great of a team. They don't have a great jungler anywhere in their system right now, and there's also not a ton of, great, young jungle talent out there, and the ones that are really good are going to be expensive, and then TSM's going to have to pay up for them. And if they're going to end up paying up for one of those guys, why didn't they pay up for Bo? Why didn't they pay up for Kenvi now? I think, or I assume that their plan is just they're not giving up on Spica yet. They're really hoping that they're going to be able to re-sign him. They're really hoping that he will come back. And again, I think it's very unlikely. It seems to me like Spica probably doesn't want to come back, that he probably wants to leave if possible, especially because I think if he wanted to stay, he would have already re-signed by now, because we have to assume that TSM has offered him multiple contract extensions at this point. But Spica definitely could end up in a position where all the other top teams have junglers. EG, they have Inspire. TL, they have Santorin. 100 Thieves, they have Closer. Cloud9 has Blabber. Which one of those teams is gonna move on from their jungler? Which one of those teams is going to even have a jungle position open? And then Spica's probably going to be in a position where he has an offer from TSM, even though he doesn't necessarily want to be there, or want to stay there, or he's maybe had a bad experience over the past couple splits. But his other options are not going to be so great. Immortals, Golden Guardians, all these other teams. Obviously, he said before he wants to go to the LPL. Maybe that'll be an option. I don't know. But it's very, very possible that even if he doesn't want to be on TSM could still end up being his best offer in the offseason. And I'm sure TSM knows that as well. So maybe they're just banking on Spica. But man, it really seems like TSM is in a rough position going forward. And I'm just questioning what they're going to do, how they're going to get out of this. If not Spica, who is even a good option for TSM in the jungle next year? Obviously, I spend a lot of time thinking about rosters and thinking over rumors and speculation and going through all the different options and stuff in my head. And I usually at least have some idea of where I would like a team to go or want a team to go or what makes sense. But for TSM, I'm just drawing a ton of blanks. And after this summer split, headed into 2023, like if you thought 2022 was bad for TSM, and it absolutely has been, I think there's a potential and a chance for things to get even worse into 2023 because especially if TSM's going cheap, especially if they are not looking to spend money like a top 5 organization, I don't think there's going to be a lot of amazing options out there, and I think it might be a couple of rough splits, a couple of rough years for TSM, but maybe I'm totally missing something. I don't know. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions, but that's pretty much it for this video today. Definitely drop a like if you guys did enjoy it. I would appreciate that so much. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think Spica's coming back next year? Do you think there's a good option out there for TSM in the jungle? Do you think there's somebody that they're going to end up getting? I don't know. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. Hopefully catch you guys in the next one, but until then, peace.